Oh my god, property is dead! No, it's fucking not. And here's why. You hear this all the time, don't you? Property's over, it's had its heyday, all this problem, it's all gonna hurt, recession tomorrow, you'll see capital growth doesn't. All these people full of shit. But why is it they say it so often, considering property is such a long-term investment? It's been around as an investment since the Egyptian times. Why is it suddenly, well I say suddenly, since I started 11 years ago, bought my first property, every single year property is dead? Let's break down some of the reasons why. First common one is old-fashioned methods don't work. There's this common misconception, I would say, that property investment is a bit old school and stuffy, and you hear about like people saying, oh yeah, it's just the old boys game, and it's like, well, yeah, 50 years ago, maybe most property investment was white middle class men like every other investment vehicle out there, but property has actually come a long way. Well, I mean, look at this, you're learning about property on YouTube from a 30-year-old that's built up a multi-million-pound portfolio. Hard to say that the world of property is exactly as it was 50 years ago, right? Obviously, times have changed, but so have the people involved on it. Property has gone digitized. You can now buy property online. You buy property without even viewing the property. You've got people in Hong Kong buying property in the UK. You've got blockchain technology coming into property. To say property is old-fashioned is ridiculous to another level. The world of property is going digitized. It's come into the 21st century and it's definitely here to stay. Property is boring, and to be fair, they're largely correct, to be fair on that one. The world has got really interesting with investments. You have to understand, property 50 years ago was the white middle class old-fashioned man, right, that was investing in it, but also anything outside like stocks and shares, you called a broker. They were in a hedge fund or a private equity firm, and ultimately that's how all investments were made. And then through the last 20, 30 years, we had like CFDs and hedges and everything else coming into derivatives, stocks, ups, downs, long, shorts, everything that came into investing, and then property became available for the everyday person. Ultimately though, when you consider property against these other investments, it is kind of boring as gold, maybe silver, but actually within property, number one, it's actually more exciting than people think. Not only do you have a flip where you buy, refurbish and sell a property, or a buy to let where you buy it, maybe refurbish it and then let it out for the long term, you've also got a plethora of other investment opportunities. Service accommodation, rent to rent, lease options, industrial conversions, land developments, commercial conversions, everything in between. There's actually over 100 property strategies, but they are right in one thing. The best investment, in my opinion, is good old-fashioned, boring, vanilla, buy-to-let property. Next is the lack of flexibility. I think people still have this old standard that you have to invest within 10 miles of where you live. How are you going to get to the property if things go wrong? How do you know if there's a great tenant involved? And actually, it's just get over yourself, you knob. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous. And you have these comments of going, I live in London, it's way too expensive, you can't invest here anymore. People in the southeast, the southwest, it's so expensive, the average property is over 300,000. By the way, they're not wrong, but think a little bit beyond your 5-minute walk then. Think about it this way. If your boiler goes down, are you going to go and fix it? If you're saying yes, get off the channel right now. Absolutely not. If a radiator pipe gets burst, are you going to go take the pipe down and rejoin it to the radiator? No. If the property needs rewiring, are you going to rewire it and hook it up? No. If the gas needs doing, are you going to do it? No. If a tenant's not paying, are you going to go and talk to them? No. You get a management agent in place that manages it because you are an investor, not a landlord taking care of the day-to-day of property. So with that in mind, and 360 cameras and everything else, I've got investors that have never been to the country, let alone visited or know where half of their property portfolio is. Property is no longer location dependent. You can be based anywhere in the world as long as they allow investing outside of their country, which America and some other countries don't really like. But most countries in the world, you can invest in property in the UK without even having stepped here. You can find the property, get the law done by somebody else, get the legals done, get the finance done, the refurbishment done, the management done, and indeed the payments done outside of your control. And as long as you're able to outsource effectively, you are not location dependent anymore. And actually, property as an investment model is as flexible as anything else. Next is a case of rose tinted glasses. Have you ever done this? Like, oh, do you remember the good old days? Do you remember when we were younger? I remember when I started in property investing. I was in number 2 Haddon Place. I used to sleep on a mattress on the floor. I used to work at my desk and I used to eat unlimited pasta with a load of cheese. Those were the good old days, right? Well, no, actually, eating pasta and cheese was pretty shitty from what I remember. But we tend to do this thing of reminiscing on the past like it was a really powerful, happy incident. It might have been, by the way, but if you actually think about the day to day at the time, it wasn't that great. And I think the same happens in investment. You've got the old boys, if you like, that invested in property 40, 50 years ago. Property's not like it used to be. It used to be so easy. You used to get a tenant in. If they weren't paying, you kicked them out. You moved it around. You did all of this stuff. The government legislation was easy. Getting mortgages were easy. Property prices aren't going to double every 10 years like they have for the past 1,000. Yeah, sure. The reality is that people's picture of a past happening compared to a present situation is often portrayed as more positive in the past, more negative in the present, because all of the changes that you're talking about, actually you feel them a lot more. Now, don't get me wrong, this is maybe a slightly deterred example, but I'll use it because I think it's apt. COVID, you know, the last few years has been rough for some people, and for others, honestly, not really noticed it that much. But when you talk about it day to day, it's really painful, really horrible. Some of us have obviously lost people, which is shit by anyone's account. But when you tell it 20, 30 years from now, it's like, do you know what? It wasn't that bad. Got to work from home. It changed the era of working because actually so many people can work from home now, and you reminisce in a much more positive way than you do today. So people live with rose tinted glasses, and actually if they took them off for a while, they'd see the opportunity that is available today. And finally, market changes, right? Market changes. We've had Brexit, the votes, the Conservatives, the referendums, the petrol prices going crazy, fuel prices. I heard on the radio this morning that by next year, fuel's going to go up another £4,000 per year per household. What? Absolutely crazy. We've got, what else do we have? COVID, interest rates rising, a recession is getting announced every 5 minutes for the last decade, right? And ultimately, people are terrified of change. But us investors, what we understand is change equals opportunity. And I'm a big believer in the longevity in property, and that you should never, ever, ever look externally, because there are always factors. You think 30 years ago, there weren't factors to take account of. What about Maggie Thatcher's time with all of that turmoil? Nobody knew where the UK was going. She had to make some really rash decisions, and yeah, historically, that's one of the best times to be investing. And I'm very much like Warren Buffett in the fact that I get fearful when other people are greedy, and I am getting greedy whilst other people are fearful right now. Because guess what? You don't wait to get into property, you buy property and wait. And whilst the past doesn't guarantee the future, 1,000 years of capital growth is a fair indication, and I am going all in right now. So those are just some of the reasons why people get scared of getting invested in property and end up saying property's dead. But I hope that you also agree, if you're watching this, you definitely do, that it's just bullshit. Now has always been the best time to invest in property. Sure, if you got involved 50 years ago, 40 years, 30, 12, whatever it is, that would be great. But you're going to be saying the same 10 years from now, 20 years from now. I wish I got started then. For whatever reason, I didn't. Don't be one of those individuals. Have I missed any out? Let me know in the comments. What's another reason you've heard that property is dead? If you're new to the channel, you want to find out more about property, make sure to lightly tap the subscribe and the notification bell, and lightly destroy the like onto the way to the next video.